What happened to Annie, the unstoppable go-getter?
Well, there was that gas leak last year.
Oh, don't blame it all on the gas leak year.
If you're a fan of the show Community, you know the story by now. If you're not a fan of the show Community, what are you doing here? After Season 3 ended, showrunner Dan Harmon was fired by NBC and replaced by David Carrasco and Moses Port for Season 4, and only Season 4. The majority of Community fans say that the gas leak year is easily the worst season of the show, and I agree, but only a little bit. The first 3 seasons of Community are almost perfect, and it's not unlikely that the 4th season of the show wouldn't have lived up to the hype regardless of whether or not Dan Harmon got fired. It came back for seasons 5 and 6 after all, and the reception for those seasons is significantly more mixed than the first 3. There are some bad episodes here in Season 4, sure, but also some really good ones, and I kind of feel like the only reason people treat Season 4 as the butt of a joke is because it had different showrunners. So today, I'm going to give the gas leak year some of the credit it deserves by talking about 5 episodes from Season 4 that I think meet the expectations set by the show's initial run.
I do not have daddy issues.
You get 2 minutes.
You know what Seasons 5 and 6 were missing? A Halloween episode. After having one in every season prior, it felt really weird when there was no mention of the holiday in the last 2 seasons. Nitpicking aside, Season 4's Halloween episode, Paranormal Parentage, is probably my favorite Halloween episode in the whole show. It's got a lot of great comedic stuff, mixed in with very interesting character-focused stuff with Jeff.
Okay, if I need a dad so bad, how come I've had his phone number for 3 weeks without the slightest urge to call him?
You found your dad?
Overall, I really like Jeff this season. All the stuff about him reaching out to his estranged father is very well executed. The clip at the end of the episode where we see his dad's name on the boxing gloves he wore for his costume, just a really good moment of silent storytelling that shows us how Jeff doesn't have the closure he claims he does. I like the bit about Troy not understanding the secret swing room. I like all the haunted house jokes, especially this line from Annie.
If this is supposed to be like that part in that movie that's like this, I would like to remind you that I don't watch scary movies and therefore cannot appreciate the homage.
Giancarlo Esposito making a brief return as Pierce's half-brother is cool to see, and the moment they have at the end of the episode is really sweet. Overall, this episode does a great job standing up to the 3 Halloween episodes that came before it.
There a problem here?
Yeah, there's a problem. These Dusseldorfs won't leave our study room.
Nice! I don't understand any of these puns. I think I need to learn history.
Alternative History of the German Invasion is a sequel to Season 3's Fußball and Nocturnal Vigilantism. This is an episode that's brought together almost entirely by how effective its ending is. The majority of the episode is a misdirect. Using the returning German students as antagonists immediately gives you a sense of who to root for, and that makes the twist at the end more effective. The crux of the episode is highlighting how self-centered the study group is, and they use the study room to demonstrate this by showing us the lengths they'd go through to keep it to themselves. But in the process, we also see how badly damaged all the other study rooms are, and we learn that the group has just been hogging this one nice room the entire time in spite of the existence of a sign-up sheet.
Do you have a sign-in sheet?
You're asking for our papers? I thought this was America, not Arizona.
This stuff is revealed to us in bits and pieces. It's a slow reveal at first. The study group sees the broken study rooms and the sign-up sheet early in the episode, and they feel nothing about it, and because we're attached to their point of view, we feel nothing about it as well. But when they actually come in with the big reveal later, it shifts the perspective of the entire episode. It's written so we realize how selfish the Greendale Six are being as they realize it themselves, and that's what makes it an effective twist. I think it's nice to see the study group learn a lesson for once, and the sequence at the very end where they go and fix up all the other study rooms is pretty heartwarming to watch. This episode's B-plot kicks off the Changnesia arc, and while I'm not super crazy about Chang this season, I also don't think he has a bad arc in the show. It's just a fun episode with a cool ending that challenges your perspective of the show.
Go! What are you doing to my car?
Take me with you.
You know what seasons 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 were really missing? A Thanksgiving episode. Cooperative Escapism and Familial Relations is pretty much the Season 4 episode that everybody agrees is great, and for good reason. The B-plot of everybody going to Shirley's house for Thanksgiving is wall-to-wall jokes, and every single one of them lands.
Who's hungry for turkey? Shirley, we were just...
About to...
Eat garbage!
Abed's narrating is great. Having him frame the story like a jailbreak movie is really funny, and it makes it kind of heartwarming when their perspective is shifted by Shirley later in the episode. But the real star of the show here is Jeff meeting his dad. Everything about this A-plot is wonderful. The insight we get on Jeff as a character through the lens of his father is really interesting, and it's something that the show had been building up to since season 2. William Winger is a fairly interesting character, despite him only appearing this one time. The whole episode he comes off as being really uncomfortable with affection, which is shown to have had an impact on his other son, Willie. It makes sense that William would believe abandoning Jeff actually did him good. He seems pretty aware that he's not being that great of a dad to Willie, and of course, Jeff starts out only telling William about the good stuff because he secretly craves his approval. So Jeff explaining what William actually did to him mentally when he left is such a hard-hitting moment, and after 2 seasons worth of build-up, they stuck the landing.
I'm just a grown man who can't even look his own friends in the eye for too long because I'm afraid that they'll see that I am broken. So you get credit for that.
I think that a really underappreciated aspect of this episode is Britta's role in it. The gradual dumbing down of Britta over time is something I'm not fond of overall, but this episode strikes a really good middle ground, with Britta being a bit naive and overbearing, but still extremely kind and sincere and smarter than she's given credit for. Despite how often the show jokes about her not being smart enough to study psychology, she knew exactly what Jeff needed here and pushed him to do what was right for him. Not just in this episode, but in Paranormal Parentage as well.
Britta, thank you. You were right.
It gives us a dynamic that I really wish the show would have explored more with these characters in the later episodes. But even if they didn't, I'm glad we got to see it here.
Is there really that much money in this, Dean, or is it like that endorsement deal you made with Let's potato chips?
If you don't like the crispy-licious taste of Let's, feel free to eat that other greasy brand.
Splingles? Not this guy.
Thank you, Troy.
Economics of Marine Biology feels like a really good Season 1 episode. Save for a few things like the references to the previous episode I talked about and the presence of Magnitude, who wasn't introduced until Season 2, this feels like it could be a story that takes place during the first year. The Dean and Annie trying to recruit a rich student to Greendale feels like a really creative idea for a story that stays grounded in the college setting. I've seen some people say that Annie helping the Dean trick Archie into enrolling would be out of character for her, but I don't really agree with that. Annie is the straight A's honor student who's always been super dedicated to her education, and she takes pride in her school. If we look back at Season 2, she almost transferred to City College because she couldn't stand how everyone was constantly making fun of Greendale. So I think it would make sense that she wants to help the Dean here because Archie coming to Greendale would mean that it would have a larger budget. And it doesn't really compromise her moral compass along the way either, because we see her being hesitant. We see how much she regrets participating in it after the fact, you know? She did something that she doesn't 100% agree with in retrospect, but that doesn't mean that it was out of character for her. It means that she made a mistake. The end of the A story is another heartwarming one, with Archie enrolling in Greendale because they put their foot down and decided to stop kissing up to him. It's nice to see a character like Archie, this super rich, super privileged guy, be more down to earth and realize he wants to be treated like a regular human being, which is what Greendale is all about. The B-plot with Troy and Shirley is another really funny one. The physical education idea feels really reminiscent of those Season 1 episodes where some of the characters would take specific classes like pool, pottery, sailing, and day seizing. And the short C-plot we get between Jeff and Pierce feels really sincere. I like this moment, where Pierce congratulates Jeff on confronting his dad.
I'm no stranger to father issues, so I know confronting your dad couldn't have been easy. I just want to say I'm proud of you.
I really do like it when Pierce has more genuine moments like this. It makes his character feel more human, when most of the time they just play up how much of a greedy bastard he is. Anyway, this video is sponsored by Let's Potato Chips.
Get your damn hand off of my Let's!
Honestly, after all that, you still eat Splingles.
Hey, remember when Troy and Britta dated? The show doesn't. Relationship drama isn't something I think Community does all that well most of the time. I don't like the Jeff x Britta stuff in Season 1, I think it's really forced. I don't like any of the Jeff x Annie stuff because I feel like Jeff is kind of a creep most of the time. Actually, it's super weird that Jeff is usually the only guy in the main cast who gets romance stories. But in Seasons 3 and 4, they made Troy x Britta a thing, and even though they didn't really give it a whole lot of focus, I actually like them a lot more than any of the Jeff ships the show kept teasing. And, ironically enough, the reason I like them so much is because of the episode where they break up. Basic Human Anatomy is my favorite episode of Season 4 because it is hands down the best this show has ever been at writing romantic relationships. The episode revolves around Troy and Abed pretending to switch bodies on Troy and Britta's anniversary. It's a goofy concept at first, and the study group reacts the way you'd expect them to, but as the episode goes on, it slowly reveals the reason behind it. Troy is committing so hard to this bit because he doesn't want to face how anxious his relationship with Britta is making him feel. At the beginning of the episode, they're accidentally called out for forgetting that their anniversary was coming up, and that bleeds into Troy's anxieties about the relationship. Troy feels he isn't as invested as he should be, but he doesn't want to admit that he feels this way because he cares about Britta, and he doesn't want to hurt her or stop being friends with her.
So he's here, at this point, not knowing how to talk to her, not knowing how to tell her that he wants to break up.
It's a very realistic position for a person to be in with a relationship, where you don't think things are working, but you don't want to end it because you're scared of how it'll affect the both of you moving forward. And the way they slowly reveal that Troy feels this way is such a creative lead-in. Everybody in the show assumes the bit was Abed's idea because bits like this are kind of his thing, but we, the audience, see Troy being the first person to commit to it, and immediately we wonder why. Then Abed starts talking about Troy's relationship from Troy's perspective, and Troy starts talking about it from Abed's perspective, and everything clicks together seamlessly. And despite what I said about Jeff earlier, he's the one who gives Troy the advice that he needs to hear, bringing his interactions with Britta this season full circle.
That said, and as hard as it may seem, right now, Troy needs to show he cares. He needs to put himself out there and own how he feels.
No matter how scary it can be, the best thing you can do for yourself and the people you care about is be honest about your feelings. The surprising emotional maturity of this episode is like lightning in a bottle in a show where most of the relationships are either toxic or creepy. The B-plot of this episode isn't anything to write home about, but the A story takes up a majority of the episode anyway. I do think the Dean pretending to switch bodies with Jeff is pretty funny, but even if it was just the A-plot, I would still consider this to be one of the best episodes in all of Community. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on these episodes? Do you have a favorite gas leak episode that I didn't talk about? What's your favorite type of cheese? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, or share it with your friends. Or don't do any of those things. I'm a YouTuber, not a cop.